What if the world around you wasn't as solid as you think? What if the chair beneath you, the floor holding your weight, even the thoughts moving through your mind were not real in the way you've always believed? It sounds absurd, almost unsettling. But for more than a century, scientists have uncovered something deeply disturbing about the nature of reality. At its foundation, the universe doesn't behave like the predictable machine we imagined. It doesn't stay fixed, it doesn't remain stable, and it doesn't even seem real until something or someone pays attention to it. Reality exists in a strange, in-between state, like a story that hasn't been written yet, or a movie frozen on infinite frames. It hovers in uncertainty, suspended between countless possibilities, waiting for something to call it into form. And here is the shocking part. It doesn't decide until it is observed. Picture a dimly lit laboratory. A beam of light is fired at a thin wall with two narrow openings. On the far side, a glowing screen waits, ready to record where each particle of light will land. Common sense tells us what to expect. The light should act like tiny bullets, passing through one slit or the other, leaving behind two neat, bright bands. But when the experiment was first carried out, the result defied every rule of reason. Instead of two bands, the screen revealed a strange, shimmering pattern, waves rippling into each other as if every particle of light had gone through both slits at once. The light wasn't behaving like a particle at all. It was behaving like a wave of probability, a wave of pure possibility. Reality itself seemed undecided, hovering in a cloud of maybes. Then came the moment that shattered all certainty. Curious, the scientists placed a detector at the slits to see which path the particles actually took. The instant they did, the mystery collapsed. The waves vanished. The interference pattern dissolved. Suddenly the particles behaved like little bullets again, choosing one slit or the other. The simple act of watching changed everything. Observation altered the outcome. Looking turned possibility into fact. What had been infinite futures became a single, undeniable present. This baffling shift is known as the collapse of the wave function, and it remains one of the most unsettling discoveries in science. Before anyone looked, the particle wasn't in one place or another. It wasn't even a particle at all. It was a haze of probabilities, a ghost of potential worlds. But when it was observed, it became real. It made a choice. And the strangest part is that this isn't some rare, isolated event. It seems to be how the universe operates at its deepest levels, everywhere, all the time. Reality doesn't lock into place until something interacts with it, until some kind of attention is cast upon it. But that raises a haunting question: who or what is doing the observing? If observation collapses possibility into reality, then every time you look, every time you focus your attention, every time you choose how to see the world, are you collapsing waves too? Are your thoughts not just private experiences inside your head, but forces shaping the very world you walk through? Some scientists have fought against this idea, insisting the collapse happens only because of physical measuring devices. Others, more daring, whisper something far more radical, that it is not machines but consciousness itself that does the observing. If that is true, then we are not just bystanders drifting through a pre-written script. We are the writers, the directors, the ones whose gaze gives form to the story. Think about the turning points in your life, the moments when you had to choose a path, the job you accepted, the person you loved, the risks you avoided, or the leaps you took. Before you decided, each of those futures existed as possibility, suspended like waves in the ocean. But the moment you chose, the wave collapsed. One reality became true and all the others faded into nothing. This is not just physics in a lab. This is the hidden story behind every decision, every turning point, every possibility you have ever faced. And yet this is still only the beginning. Because if your choices can collapse waves in your personal life, what happens when the collective thoughts of millions of people converge? What happens when humanity itself becomes the observer? Could our shared beliefs, fears, and expectations be shaping the very fabric of existence? If that's the case, then reality is not fixed. It is not solid. It is not final. It is waiting for you, waiting for us. Science has given us equations and experiments, but behind the numbers lies something bigger, stranger, and infinitely more personal. This is where physics collides with philosophy, where hard data collides with human experience, and it leads us to a profound, almost unsettling possibility that your thoughts may not simply reflect reality. They may create it. So the question is no longer, what is real? The question becomes, what reality will you choose to collapse? You've heard the riddle now, the strange story of a particle that behaves like a wave, a world that refuses to decide what it is until someone is watching. But before we go deeper into what this means for your own thoughts, let's sit for a moment inside this strange world of quantum waves. Because to understand how your mind shapes reality, you first need to understand the kind of reality you live in. The everyday world feels solid, predictable, trustworthy. You drop a glass, it falls to the floor. You flick a switch, the lights come on. The rules feel mechanical, as though the universe is a giant machine built from gears and levers, always ticking forward in perfect order. But when scientists looked beneath the surface into the smallest building blocks of nature, that neat machine fell apart. What they found was something far more fluid, far more slippery, almost dreamlike. At this scale, particles don't move like tiny billiard balls bouncing through space. They spread like ripples. They blur into clouds. They stretch themselves across distances as if they can't decide where to be. A single electron might exist here, or there, or both at once. It's not indecision. It's possibility. The universe, itself written not in certainties, but in probabilities. Imagine every particle as a question mark. Where is it? What path will it take? The answer is never fixed until the universe is forced to give one. Until then, the particle lives in a haze of maybes, like countless doors half opened. A physicist would call this a superposition, but in simpler words, it means the universe is constantly holding its breath, waiting for something to make the call. Think of your own life. Each morning you wake up to a field of options. What will you eat? Where will you go? How will you spend your time? But before you act, all those futures are just potentials. It's the choice you make, the breakfast you put on the plate, the road you take to work, that collapses the possibilities into a single lived moment. Quantum particles exist in that same suspended space, carrying all potential futures within them until something or someone forces a decision. This is what waves represent. Not waves of water, not even waves of sound, but waves of probability. They describe the odds of where a particle might show up, how it might behave, what it might become. In the quantum world, everything is written as chance, and it isn't a trick of our knowledge. It isn't just that we don't know where the particle is, it's that it truly hasn't chosen yet. Reality itself hasn't decided. If you find that unsettling, you're not alone. Some of the brightest minds in history were shaken by this idea. Albert Einstein hated it. He famously said, "God does not play dice with the universe." He couldn't accept a world built on chance, a world without certainty, and yet experiment after experiment has shown that this is how nature truly works. The dice are always rolling, the waves are always spreading, the universe always waiting to see which possibility will land. It's as though the world we take for granted, the walls, the sky, the streets, the people, is only the surface of a far stranger ocean. Beneath the surface, reality ripples, uncertain, never fixed until some deeper interaction forces it to crystallize. Like a dream hovering on the edge of waking, it is soft, fluid, full of potential, not yet locked into place. And the question that hangs in the air is this: if everything at the smallest scale is so uncertain, then how does the world around us appear so solid? How do all these endless probabilities combine to make the familiar reality you can touch, taste, and trust? The answer may be simpler than you think. The solidity you see isn't because the universe is fixed, it's because waves are constantly collapsing, billions of times a second, under the gaze of interaction, of observation, of awareness. The world you see is just one version of countless possibilities, collapsed into the form you know by the constant act of being observed. So when you look at your life and wonder why things feel the way they do, why certain patterns repeat, why some opportunities appear and others slip away. Remember, beneath it all, reality is a field of waves, and every wave is waiting for someone to notice it, to choose it, to collapse it into being. If particles can exist in waves of possibility, spread across many futures at once, then what forces them to choose? What takes that cloud of maybes and turns it into something you can see, touch, and live? That puzzle has haunted science for decades, and the answer leads us straight to one of the strangest truths of all. Reality seems to notice when it's being noticed. Think back to that double-slit experiment. Without anyone watching, light moved, like a wave, slipping through both paths, weaving patterns of interference on the screen. But the moment a detector was added, the mystery evaporated. The wave collapsed, the particle chose a path, and the story locked into place. Observation changed the outcome. It's easy to hear that and shrug. After all, isn't that just how experiments work? But think carefully. The universe didn't decide on its own. It didn't resolve until something watched, until something measured, until something somehow was aware. The act of observation itself pulled the particle out of possibility and into reality. What does that mean? It means the universe is not a passive machine. It means that reality does not exist in a fixed state, waiting for you to walk through it like a museum exhibit. Instead, it's more like a script that rewrites itself the moment the audience walks into the theater. And here's where things turn personal. Because what if that observer isn't just a machine, a detector, a lifeless gadget measuring particles? What if the true observer is you? Close your eyes for a moment and think about how often you change something simply by noticing it. A friend's mood shifts when you really pay attention. A child behaves differently when they know you're watching. Even in yourself, awareness changes things. The act of catching yourself in a thought, the moment of realizing I am angry or I am nervous, changes the way that thought holds power over you. Awareness transforms experience. The quantum world seems to echo this same truth on a deeper level. It's not just that we see the universe, it's that in some strange, subtle way, the universe sees us too. Consciousness and reality are entangled, woven together in ways we still don't fully understand. Scientists have argued over this for decades. Some insist the collapse has nothing to do with human consciousness, that it's merely interaction with any physical system that forces a choice. But others, daring and unafraid, suggest something far more radical. That awareness itself, the simple fact of being conscious, plays a role in bringing the world into form. If that's true, then your mind is not a mirror reflecting reality. It is more like a spotlight, shining onto the field of possibility, collapsing certain waves into being while leaving others to fade into nothing. You are not just walking through a pre-written story. You are choosing which pages are read, which scenes are played, which futures are allowed to become real. And maybe you felt this in small ways. Think about those moments when you were convinced something was going to go wrong, and somehow events unfolded exactly as you feared. Or those rare times when you felt utterly certain about a goal, when your whole attention locked onto it, and, as if by magic, the path opened and the pieces fell into place. Was that coincidence, or was it the observer effect written into the script of your own life? The truth is, every time you give something your focus, you feed it energy. Every time you dwell on a thought, you shine the light of observation on it. And in a universe made of waves waiting to collapse, your attention is not just awareness, it is creative power. So the question is not only what are you seeing, but what are you choosing to see? Because whether you know it or not, your gaze might be pulling possibility into reality, one observation at a time. Every possibility is like a wave. It stretches outward, carrying with it 1,000 potential outcomes, 1,000 versions of what could be. And until something interferes, until something observes, those possibilities remain alive, all coexisting, all waiting. But the moment attention falls, the moment the gaze is fixed, the wave collapses. The 1,000 futures fold into one, and that one becomes your reality. It's a strange idea, almost impossible to hold in your hands. But imagine standing at a crossroads in your own life. You can turn left or right, you can take the risk or stay where you are. You can speak your truth or remain silent. In that instant, before you choose, both futures exist. The version of you who said yes, the version of you who said no, the version who stayed, the version who left. For a moment they are all possible, but when you decide the wave collapses, only one of those lives becomes real. The others fade like mist at sunrise. You never live them, though in some strange sense they were there, waiting, possible, but never chosen. That is the essence of the wave function. It isn't a prediction of what will happen, it's a map of all that could happen, a canvas of probability. And collapse is the brushstroke that chooses one color, one shape, one reality out of all the rest. In the laboratory, this collapse is instant, mechanical, triggered by a measurement. In life, it is just as instant, triggered by your focus, your choice, your act of observing. And that's where the mystery becomes deeply personal, because every time you worry about what could go wrong, every time you picture failure, every time you convince yourself of limitation, you are observing one version of the wave, and maybe, just maybe, pulling it into reality. The opposite is also true. Think about the times when you've locked your attention on a dream with absolute clarity, when you've refused to accept anything else as possible. It feels like the universe bends around that choice, as though events conspire to make it real. What if that isn't luck? What if it's physics? What if the collapse of the wave is not just a theory in a textbook, but the story of how your life unfolds? Of course, this doesn't mean you can snap your fingers and bend reality to every fleeting thought. The quantum world doesn't work like a genie in a lamp, but it does suggest something powerful, that your focus is not neutral, that your attention is a creative force, that what you repeatedly choose to see, to dwell on, to believe in, has a way of solidifying into the reality you experience. Scientists will argue endlessly about whether consciousness truly collapses the wave, but step outside the lab and into your own story. Hasn't your life already shown you the truth? Haven't you felt how attention shapes experience? The person you decide to see as trustworthy often becomes trustworthy in your eyes. The problem: you keep expecting to grow often does. The opportunities you refuse to notice never seem to arrive. Collapse isn't just a scientific event, it's a lived one. Each moment you focus, you are collapsing waves. Each moment you choose, you are shaping reality. And the more aware you become of this, the less life feels like something happening to you, and the more it feels like something unfolding through you. So when you ask yourself why your life looks the way it does, maybe the answer is hidden in what waves you've been collapsing all along. Every thought you've ever had leaves an imprint, not just in your mind but in the world around you. We tend to believe thoughts are private, like whispers no one else can hear, fading into nothing the moment they pass. But what if that isn't true? What if every thought is more like a signal, a frequency sent out into the field of possibility, shaping which waves collapse and which never do? Think about how a single emotion can change a room. Walk into a space where two people have just argued and you feel it before anyone says a word. The tension is thick, almost physical. The frequency of anger lingers in the air. Now compare that to entering a space filled with laughter. You don't even need to know the joke. You feel lighter, lifted, drawn into the energy. These aren't just moods. They are vibrations, invisible but powerful, moving through the people who create them and touching everyone nearby. Your thoughts work the same way. Each one carries a charge, a resonance, like a note plucked on an invisible string. Fear vibrates differently than hope. Gratitude resonates differently than worry. And because reality itself seems to exist as waves of probability, those vibrations may act as tuning forks, nudging some possibilities closer and pushing others further away. It isn't about positive thinking in the shallow sense of pretending everything is fine. It's about recognizing that what you dwell on, what you repeatedly give your inner attention to, is not neutral. The universe is listening in its own strange way, waiting for your observation, your signal, your choice of which reality to collapse. Consider how a radio works. Stations are always broadcasting, filling the air with countless songs, voices, frequencies. but the one you hear is the one you tune into. Life is similar. Infinite versions of reality are humming in the background, but your thoughts act as the dial, tuning you to one wave and muting the rest. Worry tunes you into a world where worry is confirmed. Gratitude tunes you into a world where gratitude expands. This is why two people can walk through the same city on the same day and live entirely different realities. One sees only obstacles, delays, and rudeness. The other notices kindness, opportunity, and small moments of beauty. The city hasn't changed. The world outside hasn't changed. What changed was the frequency of thought, the inner signal they carried with them into every interaction. Now imagine this on a larger scale. Imagine years of tuning into the same frequency, years of collapsing, waves that match the thoughts you've been sending out. Over time, it begins to look like fate, as if life simply is the way it is. But maybe it isn't fate at all. Maybe it's the physics of observation and resonance, the subtle but powerful way consciousness shapes reality. Of course, you can't control every thought. No one can. The mind is restless, a stream of endless impressions. But what you can choose is where you linger, what you feed, what you allow to grow strong. A single fearful thought passing through is like a passing cloud, but fear revisited 100 times, dwelled on, obsessed over. That's like tuning the dial, locking it into place, collapsing waves that align with fear itself. And the same is true for joy, for trust, for vision. The more you choose them, the more you notice them, the more you observe the world through their lens, the more the waves collapse in their favor. Life begins to bend toward the frequencies you live in most. So maybe thoughts aren't just private flickers in your head. Maybe they are quiet but steady signals, shaping which version of reality you end up living in. And if that's true, then your mind isn't just a receiver of the world. It's a transmitter, a creator, a hidden architect shaping the possibilities that unfold into your reality. There's a strange mystery woven into the background of existence, something scientists and mystics alike keep circling around, but never fully pin down. They call it the quantum field, a vast ocean of potential, an invisible stage where every possible outcome exists before it takes shape. You can't see it, can't touch it, but in some quiet way, you already know it's there. You've felt it in the silence before a life-changing decision. You've felt it in the strange coincidences that seem too perfect to be accidents. You felt it in the way an idea appears in your mind out of nowhere, as if whispered from someplace beyond thought. That's the field. At least that's one way to understand it. Scientists describe it as probability waves, energy patterns, hidden particles dancing in endless possibility. But step outside the equations, and it feels less like math and more like a presence. Something alive. Something that doesn't just sit there indifferent but responds. And that response is where consciousness enters the story. Imagine reality as a vast, still lake. Every thought, every choice, every act of attention is like dropping a stone into the water. The ripples move outward, touching every point of the lake. Small stones make small ripples, bigger stones make waves. But nothing happens without something falling into the water. Consciousness is the stone. Awareness is the act that sets everything into motion. This is why some traditions have always said the mind creates reality, not because you snap your fingers and magic appears, but because the field seems to listen. It waits for observation, for focus, for the human spark of awareness to choose which wave collapses. And the more consistent, the more emotionally charged that awareness is, the stronger the ripple seems to become. Think about moments in your life when you were utterly focused, so immersed in a vision, a dream, or even a problem that nothing else existed. Often the world responds in uncanny ways. The right person appears, the right opportunity shows up, the timing clicks into place as if designed. Was that coincidence? Or was your consciousness entangled with the field, pulling on threads you couldn't see, weaving events to match the frequency of your focus? Skeptics will say it's just the brain, pattern-seeking, filtering, noticing what was always there. And maybe that's true on one level, but there's something deeper, something you can't dismiss once you've felt it. The sense that the universe is not a machine grinding away indifferently, but a mirror, reflecting back the shape of your inner world. This is why the ancients spoke of the world as dreamlike. Not unreal, but pliable. Not fixed, but responsive. The quantum field is the modern echo of that ancient truth. Reality is alive with possibility, and consciousness is the touch that brings it into form. The real challenge isn't whether this is scientifically provable. The real challenge is what you do with it. Because if the field truly responds to your awareness, then passivity is an illusion. Every thought, every focus, every ripple you create is shaping the story you're living. And that means you are not just drifting through existence, you are participating in its creation moment by moment. So the question becomes, what ripples are you sending into the field right now? There's a strange truth hidden in the smallest pieces of reality. Nothing is ever truly separate. Quantum entanglement reveals this in a way that almost feels like myth. Two particles, once connected, remain linked no matter how far apart they drift. Touch one and the other seems to know instantly, even if they're light years apart. No signal, no delay, just an invisible thread binding them beyond space and time. It sounds impossible, yet it's been proven again and again in experiments. And the more you think about it, the more it begins to whisper something about us too. Because maybe entanglement doesn't stop at particles. Maybe the same hidden web runs through everything. Through you, through me, through the people you've loved, even through the strangers who cross your path for a fleeting moment. Think of the times you've thought of someone, only to have them call you minutes later, or the way a mother feels her child's pain across continents, or those moments when you meet someone new and, for reasons you can't explain, it feels like you've known them all along. Science would call it coincidence, instinct, probability. But on some deeper level, it feels like evidence, fragments, of entanglement playing out in human lives. If particles can remain connected after touching once, what about hearts, minds, souls? Every encounter leaves an imprint. Every bond forges an unseen thread. Maybe when you connect with someone, you don't just share words or memories, you weave your realities together, even if only for a while. And those threads remain, pulling gently at you long after the moment has passed. This might explain why letting go can feel impossible, why memories echo louder at night, why some people remain part of you no matter how many years slip away. The field does not forget. Once entangled, always entangled. And here's the haunting part. If everything is connected at some hidden level, then no choice, no action, no thought exists in isolation. Your inner world ripples outward, touching others in ways you may never. See? A kindness shared may ripple across generations. A cruelty may linger longer than you realize. Every thread matters, because every thread is woven into the whole. So maybe the universe isn't a collection of separate lives, separate objects, separate stories. Maybe it's one vast fabric, endlessly folding and unfolding, stitched together by invisible ties of energy and awareness. We like to imagine ourselves as islands, but in truth we are waves, rising and falling from the same endless sea. And if that's true, then entanglement isn't just a scientific oddity. It's a mirror, showing us the truth we've always carried, that we are not alone and never truly separate. What we do to another, we do to ourselves. What we heal in ourselves, we help to heal in the world. The threads are already there. The only question is, how will you choose to weave them? There's a question that lingers in the back of the human mind. Is the future already written, or are we carving it as we go? The quantum world offers a strange answer. Both. In the realm of probabilities, every path exists at once. Every choice you could make, every outcome that could unfold, sits quietly in the field like unopened doors. None of them are real until you step through. This is why scientists speak of superposition, the state of many possibilities hovering together like overlapping shadows. It isn't until something is observed, until attention is given, that the wave collapses into one reality. Which means the future may not be a straight line, but a shimmering cloud of options waiting for your awareness to decide which one becomes solid. But here's where it gets tricky. Human beings are meaning-seeking creatures. We don't like the unknown, so we look for patterns, hints, signs, a clock repeating numbers, a song playing at the exact right time, a chance meeting with a stranger who says exactly what we needed to hear. We cling to these events, whispering to ourselves that the universe is guiding us, sending messages, pointing us to the right door. Sometimes, maybe it is. But sometimes, it's not the universe sending signs. It's us painting them onto reality. When your thoughts, hopes, or fears are strong enough, you filter the world through them. You start to see what you expect. You notice what aligns with your focus. You mistake your own reflection in the quantum mirror for destiny itself. This doesn't make the signs meaningless. Quite the opposite. It means they're revealing what's inside you. The patterns you keep noticing are like echoes of your own, energy bouncing back at you. They show you where your attention has settled, where your consciousness is leaning, and therefore which probabilities are getting stronger. Think about it like this. The universe is a great canvas of infinite potential. Your awareness is the brush. Every time you notice something, every time you fix your attention on it, you paint it bolder, brighter, more likely. Synchronicities and signs are like sketches appearing before the final picture. They show you what's forming, but they're not the final work. You are still the artist holding the brush. The real danger is chasing the signs instead of shaping them. Waiting for the universe to tell you what to do instead of realizing the universe is waiting for you. The field is responsive, not directive. It doesn't command you, it mirrors you. So the next time you see a pattern that feels charged with meaning, don't just ask, "What is the universe trying to tell me?" Ask instead, "What part of me is being reflected here? What possibility is already forming around my focus?" Because the sign is not outside of you. It is you bleeding through the veil of probability into the physical world. And maybe that's the most empowering truth of all. The future is not something you stumble into by following hints. It is something you collapse into by the force of your own attention. The signs are not the map. You are. At some point, all the theories stop being enough. You can listen to scientists, philosophers, mystics. You can marvel at experiments and puzzle over probabilities. But none of it matters if it stays out there in books and lectures and late-night thoughts. The question is, how do you live with this knowledge? How do you walk through a quantum world? The first truth is simple, though not always easy. Where? You place your attention matters more than you've ever been told. Most people live as if attention is cheap, as if it can be scattered across worry, distraction, fear, endless noise without consequence. But the field does not treat attention as cheap. It treats it as command. Whatever you hold in focus with feeling and repetition, you strengthen. You collapse it faster. Think of it like a garden. You can't plant seeds of doubt and expect flowers of certainty. You can't feed weeds of fear and expect fruit of joy. The soil does not judge, it only returns what you nourish. The quantum field works the same way. Every thought, every story you repeat in your head, is a seed pressed into the fabric of reality. This doesn't mean you must police every thought, terrified of slipping. That's another trap, living in fear of your own mind. It means practicing awareness, learning to notice where your focus drifts, and gently guiding it back to what you choose to create. It means recognizing when you are watering weeds and when you are nurturing roots that will sustain you. There's power in the small shifts, choosing to focus on gratitude for a single moment in the morning, choosing to hold the image of a future you desire, not as fantasy, but as if it were already unfolding. Choosing not to rehearse the worst-case scenario again and again in your head, but to let it dissolve and leave space for something better. These small moments accumulate, they compound, and one day they tip reality into alignment. Living in a quantum reality also means loosening your grip on certainty. Control is an illusion we cling to out of fear. But quantum life is fluid, unpredictable, alive. The wave contains surprises we can't always imagine. Sometimes what unfolds is better than the picture we clung to. Sometimes the detour is the path. Living this way requires trust. Trust in yourself, trust in the field, trust in the hidden intelligence that threads everything together. And maybe most of all, it requires responsibility. Because once you know your thoughts shape reality, you can no longer pretend to be powerless. You can't keep blaming the world for what you endlessly feed with your attention. The mirror has been revealed, and though it's humbling, it's also liberating. If reality is a response, then you are never stuck. A single shift in awareness begins to open new probabilities. Imagine the kind of world that could unfold if enough people lived this way, choosing deliberately what to collapse, refusing to drown in fear, cultivating vision instead of despair. The collective field would tilt. Entire realities could shift. Perhaps that is how true change comes, not through force but through consciousness multiplied. So when you wake tomorrow, remember, you are not waking into a fixed world. You are stepping into a field of possibilities, and your attention is the hand that shapes them. The smallest act of awareness, the smallest turn of focus is an act of creation. You are living in a quantum reality, whether you accept it or not. The only question is, what will you choose to collapse today? There comes a moment in every journey when the search turns inward. You've listened to the experiments, you've traced the mysteries of particles and waves, you've wrestled with signs, synchronicities, and doubts. And then you realize the answer you've been chasing has been sitting quietly inside you the whole time. The observer is not some distant scientist, not a faceless figure behind a machine. The observer is you. You are the one collapsing the wave every time you look, every time you choose, every time you dare to feel something fully. And that changes everything. Think about what that means. For years, maybe for your whole life, you've been told you're small, insignificant in the face of a vast universe, a tiny speck on a pale blue dot spinning through cold space. But what if the universe isn't something you're trapped inside of? What if it's something alive, something responsive, something listening to you? Every thought you've whispered in the silence, every longing you've tucked into your chest, every moment you've believed, even when no proof appeared, what if none of it was wasted? What if the field has been listening all along, waiting for you to finally see your role in the dance? Here's the truth. Reality is not happening to you. Reality is happening with you. The wave doesn't collapse without your gaze. The future doesn't harden until you walk into it. You are not a bystander. You are the participant, the painter, the composer, the one who decides which song plays out of infinite notes. And yes, there will be chaos. There will be days when probabilities don't unfold the way you imagined. But even then, the power remains. Because even in the middle of uncertainty, your awareness is shaping, your focus is planting seeds, your being is sending ripples through the field. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is ever still. So maybe it's time to stop waiting, stop chasing signs, stop asking for permission. The universe has already given it. The moment you exist, you have the right to create, to shape, to call forth the reality you desire. The wave is waiting for you. The possibilities are infinite. And all it takes is the courage to look, to choose, to collapse one of them into being. Maybe tonight, before you close your eyes, you'll sit with this. You'll imagine the life you long for, not as a dream out of reach, but as a reality humming quietly in the field, waiting for your attention. You'll feel it, taste it, breathe it until it feels almost too real. And in that moment, something shifts. The wave wavers. The probabilities bend. And when you open your eyes tomorrow, the first thread of that reality may already be unraveling into your world, because you are not just living in the universe, you are co-creating it. You always have been, and now you know. There's a strange tension that lingers in the air whenever we talk about reality. Most people think of it as fixed, unshakable, something that's always been there and always will be. But the deeper you look, the stranger it gets. And somewhere in that strangeness lies a secret that could change everything you think you know about life, about possibility, about yourself. Imagine for a moment that reality is not a solid wall, but a trembling curtain. Behind it, infinite outcomes wait like shadows, flickering and shifting with every breath. They're not yet real, not yet chosen. They exist only as potential until something or someone collapses them into form. That someone is you. It sounds impossible, at first almost unbelievable, but when you trace the lines of quantum physics, when you follow the threads of experiment after experiment, the picture becomes clearer. At the smallest scales, reality does not behave the way we expect. Particles refuse to stay in one place. They exist in clouds of possibility, neither here nor there until something observes them. The very act of looking makes them real. This isn't just theory, it's been tested, argued, replicated. Scientists fired particles through slits expecting a predictable pattern, but instead, the particles acted as if they were waves of probability, until someone observed them. In that moment, the wave collapsed. Possibility hardened into fact. The universe made a choice, and if particles behave this way at their core, then reality itself is not built on certainty, but on potential, which means your thoughts, your focus, your awareness might hold far more power than you've been led to believe. The implications are dizzying. If your attention shapes reality, then every thought you linger on, every emotion you feed, every possibility you believe in is not just a passing moment, it's a command. Most people don't realize they're issuing orders all the time, planting seeds into the fabric of existence. Instead, they chase signs, waiting for confirmation from outside, not realizing they are the ones collapsing the wave in the first place. Life becomes a mirror, and like any mirror, it doesn't argue, it doesn't tell you what's true or false, it simply reflects. Fear reflected back as obstacles, doubt reflected back as delays, trust reflected back as openings, belief reflected back as miracles. It makes you wonder how much of your life has been shaped not by fate, not by chance, but by where your focus rested. How many doors have opened or stayed closed because of what you chose to see? But here's the paradox. The more desperately you search for proof, the more you delay it. The wave doesn't collapse under pressure, it collapses under presence. The more you need to be convinced, the more the field withholds, because in your very need you affirm its absence. It is only when you let go, when you stop chasing signs, that reality has room to breathe, to fall into alignment. And this is where most people get stuck. They think manifestation means forcing, controlling, demanding. But quantum reality whispers something different. It's not control, it's coherence. Not chasing, but aligning. The field does not respond to frantic signals. It responds to clarity, to stillness, to certainty felt so deeply it no longer asks for proof. Picture yourself standing in front of an infinite ocean of possibility. Waves rise and fall, each one carrying a different version of your life. Success, failure, love, loss, joy, despair. Most people thrash around in the surf, chasing one wave after another, desperate to catch the right one. But you don't have to chase. You only have to stand, breathe, and choose. The wave comes to you. Choice is the key. And choice is made not in words, but in attention. Where your mind rests, reality builds. Where your heart lingers, the field collapses. The question is never whether you are creating. The question is only, what are you creating right now? Still, it's not always so simple, because attention is slippery, it drifts. It clings to fear, to memories, to doubts rehearsed 1,000 times. The field doesn't filter them out. It doesn't say, oh, she didn't mean that worry, or he didn't mean that fear. It simply reflects, patiently, faithfully, until you shift your gaze. And so the practice is not about perfection. It is about awareness. Noticing when you are feeding weeds and gently returning to the seeds you want to grow. Noticing when you are rehearsing pain and softly choosing to rehearse peace instead, over and over, until the habit of creation becomes natural. There's a rhythm to this, a pulse you begin to feel. At first it's subtle, small synchronicities, little openings, then bigger shifts, then entire realities bending toward you, and once you taste it, you can never unsee it. You can never go back to believing life is fixed, blind, mechanical, because the truth is life is alive, the universe is alive, and it's listening. And yet with this knowing comes responsibility, because once you see that you are the observer, you cannot return to being the victim. You cannot keep pretending you are powerless, blaming chance, blaming fate, blaming signs. The mirror is too clear now, and though that weight may feel heavy at first, it is also the greatest liberation you will ever find. So how do you live this way? How do you carry this into every breath? By remembering, moment by moment, that you are standing in a field of possibilities, and that your awareness is not cheap. It is not throwaway. It is creation itself. When you worry, you are collapsing waves into forms of fear. When you trust, you are collapsing waves into forms of flow. When you imagine, when you believe, when you feel something deeply, you are pulling threads of the invisible into the visible. And perhaps most importantly, you stop waiting. You stop asking for proof. You stop needing the universe to send you another sign, because you realize the sign was always you, your focus, your choice, your collapse of the wave. There's something extraordinary in this recognition, For so long, you may have felt like a passenger, carried by currents you couldn't see. But now you know you are part of the current itself. You are both wave and observer, both dream and dreamer. And though the infinite still surrounds you, though uncertainty still hums in the air, it no longer feels like chaos. It feels like freedom. Because in every moment, you hold the power to choose, to look, to collapse, to create. So maybe tonight, as you close your eyes, you'll sit with this truth. You'll feel the life you long for, not as a wish, but as a reality waiting in the field, shimmering just beyond the curtain. You'll breathe it in, not someday, not maybe, but now. And in that breath, the wave begins to waver. The field begins to bend. And reality quietly, faithfully starts to take shape around you, because you are not just living in the universe. You are co-creating it. You always have been, and now you know.